Parolmikini, Gumbi, Iningi. It's a good day today, and Iningai is my country. And before I start, it's important that I acknowledge the ancestors of the land, the Gadigal people that you're all sitting on today. But I also acknowledge all of our ancestors, yours and mine, that walked this land before us, that brought us here to this conversation today. But I also want to take this opportunity to acknowledge all of our international visitors and all of our dignitaries that are here with us today. I acknowledge you and I thank you all for the tremendous journey that you all would have come on to arrive here today. Can I also acknowledge and thank CMI and for the invitation to speak here. Let's think about now ICIN. I want to just take us and think about this really remarkable organisation network that morphed up. And if I think about when I first joined ICIN, I remembered a point in time as we embarked on becoming carbon farmers, we started at 6 members to now where we are and have grown to 26 members and still growing. We are the Indigenous Carbon Industry Network, ICIN, better known as, and I'm a director, currently sitting on that as well as a member of that organisation. And with this sort of participation, as far as our membership representation, we cover an impressive amount of Australia's land mass. These projects are not just reducing carbon, they are changing lives of communities. They are creating a better future for my people, I think for all of us. But I want to also reflect and think about what we're about to embark on. And with this in mind, and what we're all about to vote on, the yes or the no, which we can't run away from, let's ensure that the decisions we make about Indigenous interests and rights today are decisions we can be proud of into the future. I need to introduce you to my family so you get a better understanding about me, who I am, and what I follow. So you'll see there's a lady that's sitting there and she's sitting down holding a baby. This photo was taken in 1926 as in the fringe dwelling camp just outside of Barcaldine, where I'm born and bred. So that great woman sitting down holding the baby is my great-grandmother, my grandfather's mother. The woman that sits behind her is my great-great-grandmother, my grandfather's grandmother. And the gentleman that's sitting right at the end with the child on his lap is my great-grandfather. And my grandfather's standing up proud. There were 16 children. They were entrepreneurs back in their day, and I reflect and think about the stories and what we know. And we're still so proud that we hold this land that our family held. My grandmother was wise enough, and my grandfather in the 30s, to buy the land for £10, the land in which they were fringe dwellers on. But the photo you see is 1926. So they hadn't acquired that land yet. They were still the fringe dwellers. But during that time, they set up businesses. And one of these businesses was probably a couple of businesses that they set up. One in particular was burning charcoal. They'd get all the gidgee and whatnot. I think it's biochar, but they were creating charcoal for the coal-powered power stations, believe it or not. But that's what they were doing. They had these great, and I think in the museum out here, you can go and you can find still my great-grandfather's shovel for this charcoal pit. They also did burr picking. So they were also cleaning country whilst they were out here as a continual practice, but they could see the opportunities and the economic opportunities that they could do in order to support their families. So in 1945, the Barcaldine Council, or the government of the time, wanted to put the new airstrip in. And we still have in our family where my grandmother wrote a letter insisting on £500 compensation to relocate all of her family into town, because how dare the government build this monstrosity that will jeopardise the life of her family. So as a very staunch, strong Aboriginal woman, my matriarch that sat above me, I'm so proud of that story. I'm so proud of the fact that we still have today, as Indigenous people in this town, are the largest landholders, my family, because of that. So our HIR project that we're doing is on the land that our people and our ancestors did ceremony on that connects to the land that we fringe dwelled on. The Inangai people were very strong people, and we lived on the edge of the ancient inland sea at one point in time. We did carbon farming, we did environmental work, we did care for country in such a way. So when we arrived at Turraburra or Gracevale Station, of course, when we started our HIR project, we were so far into the drought. I think it was coming in the last couple of years of the big dry spell, the drought that we had. And the gentleman, the previous owner, had just cleared all of his country. I think he'd cleared something in excess of, I think it was like 15,000 acres of the 22,500 acres that was cleared. And so through that then, when we arrived, there was no trees, no grass, no nothing. So of course then for us, the first thing we knew we had to do was to figure out a way on keeping water on country, because it was going to rain. But this was also how we started the journey of thinking about rainmaking ceremonies and what is the value of these ancient practices that Aboriginal people had done for many millennia before. Part of that for us was a thing that we called Napachi Napachi. So the first part for us was to protect the waterways and clean out that water hole so it held water, because it had 2.5 meters of built up silt. So that water's just going to run straight off, going to go nowhere. Animals are going to be sick. So in this water hole, which it meant that it held water for longer, so our country, not only were the animals, but our country was healthy and happy because it was sustaining and retaining water. The rains come. So we've been preparing our country for fire now at this point in time and starting to look at, because we had such big rains, we also know that we need to start to think about how we manage country from the ultimate, the fires that are going to come. But not only that, we want to reset our environment, because we haven't had to practice on country for the past 150 plus years. We have not practiced our land management on this continent, Australia, for that length of time. We ask, just let us do that, because our old people did that right. They did that right for many millennia. So when you came and you arrived, as the early explorers did, one of the things that we know that they shared and they talked about was how beautiful and pristine this land was. They talked about the parklands. They talked about how it looked like they'd just been farming. There was cropping going on. Mitchell in his diaries. So I think for us, when we think about this, and as a First Nations person, to be afforded the opportunity to heal country through our old practices is truly the most rewarding thing that you can do, that you are doing for anything, and in particular for the next generation to come. Picking up sticks is what we call this practice, though, this latest practice. So we've got a Napachi, but we picked up sticks. So any dead branches or twigs that are sitting on the side of the tree branches, because that'll lessen a fuel load as well. We stack them. Any dead limbs, fallen, felled trees, we stack them. We're cleaning up our environment, cleaning up our bush. We should be able to walk through that bush without stumbling. We should be able to walk through that country without getting burrs on our feet. And the animals should be able to freely go through, as well as the water should retain itself. So through this practice now, we know we're retaining the water. We're redefining the direction and how it sits in our country again. So for us, this has meant that we have been able to slow everything down in our country, prevent the erosion that has occurred due to the farming land management practices of the past through the extensive land clearing that we know that we've witnessed. Now more than ever is the right time to support this transformative space for Indigenous people through carbon and environmental markets. If done the right way, Indigenous traditional custodians owned carbon projects are unique because of the outcomes they support in terms of self-determination and healthy country. So ICIN's members are leading the way, working in partnership with scientists and government to support the development of new carbon methods that value Indigenous land and sea management, and developing best practice guidelines for the industry, such as the Indigenous Carbon Projects Guide and the Guide to Seeking Free, Prior and Informed Consent of Indigenous Communities for a Carbon Project. But for me, the ideal future, well, let me take us now to the ideal. We need to support long-term funding for such groups like ICIN. We need to build culturally competent. We need to build cultural competency of government and corporate staff, support access to startup capital for Indigenous projects, and provide plenty of time for consultation with First Nations people and transparent and accessible information about markets. We must not forget our future generations and the footprint we want to leave them. We must collectively support the development and growth of the Indigenous carbon industry and the interests and rights of Indigenous Australians. So thank you to CMI for the support, to ICIN, to once again host a booth this year as well. And to find out more, I encourage you to visit the booth outside, have a good old yarn up with our co-chair, Sissy Gore. I'm sure Sissy will be waiting for you out there, along with our CEO, Anna Bosted, who are here attending today with you all. And I wish you all the very best and enjoy your next few days ahead and your travels home. And I wish I could be there with you all in person, of course, because I'd love to get you up for a dance right now. But on Mikini, it's a good day. Thank you.